Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet was the most generous person and he used to become more so generous, particularly in the month of Ramadan because Jibril used to meet him every night of the month of Ramadan till it elapsed. Allah's apostle used to recite the Quran for him. When Jibril met him, he used to become more generous than the fast wind in doing good. Sahi Bukhari number 4997. The Book of the Virtues of the Quran. Status Sahi. Narrated Abu Huraira, a man came to the Prophet and said, I have been ruined for I have had sexual relation with my wife in Ramadan. While I was fasting, the Prophet said to him, manumit a slave. The man said, I cannot afford that. The Prophet said, then fast for 2 successive months continuously. The man said, I cannot do that. The Prophet said, then feed 60 poor persons. The man said, I have nothing to feed them with. Then a big basket full of dates was brought to the Prophet. The Prophet said, where is the questioner? Go and give this in charity. The man said, shall I give this in charity to a poorer person than L? By Allah, there is no family in between these 2 mountains of Medina who are poorer than we. The Prophet then smiled till his premolar teeth became visible and said, then feed your family with it. Sahi Bukhari number 6087. The Book of Al-Adab, Good Manners. Status Sahi. Narrated Abu Huraira, a man came to the Prophets and said, I am ruined. The Prophet said, what is the matter with you? He said, I have done a sexual relation with my wife while fasting in Ramadan. The Prophet said to him, can you afford to manumit a slave? He said, no. The Prophet said, can you fast for 2 successive months? He said, no. The Prophet said, can you feed 60 poor persons? He said, I have nothing. Later on an IRQ, big basket, containing dates was given to the Prophet and the Prophet said to him, take this basket and give it in charity. The man said, to poorer people than we? Indeed, there is nobody between its i.e. Medina's 2 mountains who is poorer than we. The Prophet then said, take it and feed your family with it. Sahi Bukhari number 6711. The Book of the Expiation of Unfulfilled Oaths. Status Sahi. Narrated Nafi, Ibn Umar used to give the zakat of Ramadan, zakat al-fitr, according to the mud of the Prophet, the first mud, and he also used to give things for expiation for oaths according to the mud of the Prophet. Abu Qutayba said, Malik said to us, our mud, i.e. of Medina, is better than yours and we do not see any superiority except in the mud of the Prophet. Malik further said to me, if a ruler came to you and fixed a mud smaller than the one of the Prophet, by what mud would you measure what you give for expiation or zakat al-fitr? I replied, we would give it according to the mud of the Prophet. On that, Malik said, then, don't you see that we have to revert to the mud of the Prophet ultimately? Sahi Bukhari number 6713. The Book of the Expiation of Unfulfilled Oaths. Status Sahi. Narrated Abu Huraira, a person had sexual relation with his wife in the month of Ramadan while he was fasting, and he came to Allah's apostle seeking his verdict concerning that action. The Prophet said to him, can you afford to manumit a slave? The man said no. The Prophet said, can you fast for 2 successive months? He said no. The Prophet said, then feed 60 poor persons. Sahi Bukhari number 6821. The Book of Al-Maharbin. Status Sahi. Narrated Aisha, a man came to the Prophet in the mosque and said, I am burnt, ruined. The Prophet asked him, with what have you done? He said, I have had sexual relation with my wife in the month of Ramadan while fasting. The Prophet said to him, give in charity. He said, I have nothing. The man sat down, and in the meantime there came a person driving a donkey carrying food to the Prophet. The sub-narrator, Abdur Rahman, added, I do not know what kind of food it was. On that the Prophet said, where is the burnt person? The man said, here I am. The Prophet said to him, take this food and give it in charity to someone. The man said, to a poorer person than L? My family has nothing to eat. Then the Prophet said to him, then eat it yourselves. Sahi Bukhari number 6822. The Book of Al-Maharbin. Status Sahi. Narrated Talha bin Ubaidullah, a Bedouin with unkempt hair came to Allah's apostle and said, O Allah's apostle, tell me what Allah has enjoined on me as regards prayers. The Prophet said, you have to offer perfectly the 5 compulsory prayers in a day and a night, 24 hours, except if you want to perform some extra optional prayers. The Bedouin said, tell me what Allah has enjoined on me as regards fasting. The Prophet said, you have to observe fast during the month of Ramadan except if you fast some extra optional fast. The Bedouin said, tell me what Allah has enjoined on me as regards zakat. The Prophet then told him the Islamic laws and regulations, whereupon the Bedouin said, by him who has honored you, I will not perform any optional deeds of worship and I will not leave anything of what Allah has enjoined on me. Allah's apostle said, he will be successful if he has told the truth, or he will enter paradise if he said the truth. And some people said, the zakat for 120 camels is 2 hikkas, and if the zakat payer slaughters the camels intentionally or gives them as a present or plays some other trick in order to avoid the zakat, then there is no harm in it for him. Sahi Bukhari number 6956. The Book of Tricks. Status Sahi.